Hello, adventurers. My name's Tyler.
And I'm Richard.
On today's episode, we're discussing the future of the show and exciting changes we'll be making. Welcome to True Strike.
Howdy, folks, and welcome back to the show. We are starting something new. Well, sort of.
Yeah, we've actually been taking an introspective look on True Strike as a whole, and we're hoping to actually branch out a little bit right now. True Strike podcast is going nowhere. This will still be your weekly way to check in on the world of Dungeons and Dragons and adjacent TTRPGs or board games and things like that for like. But board games, that's something we want to start looking into more, because me and Richard love board games as a whole. Games, it's all the table stuff, right? And Gen Con, for example, has kind of inspired us to just really branch out into this world. And, well, we're going to start bringing you guys more content, especially to y'all on the YouTubes and TikTok and Instagram and anywhere we could see video, because that's our main thing. We're going to start bringing video to this channel.
Yeah, this is something that we've actually talked about for probably as long as we talked about doing a podcast in general, and just period was, board games, because it's something that we both like so much and we both have quite a few of. I have board games on my shelf that I've never even played, just because I see board games that I think look so interesting and I just instantly pick them up and I add them to the collection. Now, I'm not saying that I have like this massive collection of board games. I have quite a few. I think the last time I was on count, I was in the neighborhood of like 40 or so games on the shelf in my computer room right now, most of which we've played at least once or twice, some of which we've never even cracked open. And a lot of these are super fun games that maybe people haven't heard of or don't know how fun they are. So that's kind of where I think we were at, which was, how can we talk about some of these games in a format that's easily digestible and, easy to put out, and that doesn't take a big investment to sit down and watch, I think, is what kind of like we were looking at, really.
Yeah, so first thing I think you're actually going to see new coming from us is we're going to be doing some 60-second board game reviews. You're going to see these across your YouTube shorts and your TikToks and stuff like I mentioned earlier. And that's something we're working on right now. You're going to see, Richard and I on camera, potentially sometimes guest hosts from other channels also jumping in and doing some reviews here and there. And we're going to keep it to a nice, compact format. We'll still have, with some game on footage. You'll get to see us, on camera,
Ooh.
beautiful faces.
Ugh.
And that's the first thing we're going to be jumping into. And in fact, we might be recording some of that today just to really get this ball rolling. Figuring out a, release cadence, stuff like that. We still got to nail that down. And, actually, while I mention this, since we're still at the beginning of the show, as you may have noticed, where's the Dungeons & Dragons talk, the TTRPGs in this episode? This episode is really just going to be Richard and I sitting inside of a glass room while you peer inside with your ears. We are actively discussing and going back and forth and trying to figure out as transparently as possible what True Strike looks like going forward.
Yeah, and to be incredibly blunt about it, we haven't recorded anything for this new content yet. And in fact, some of the scripts for those were just literally penned. So this is something that we haven't recorded anything yet. So we don't really know how it's going to look or what it's going to be like. And, even before we sat down to, start recording an episode today, we still haven't hammered out all the details yet, because there's still a lot to discuss and what we actually are looking to do and kind of where we're going to go with this. So we have a good idea of what it's going to look like in our brain pans, but once we actually sit down and start recording, things may change, and we might get a couple videos into this before we decide that the format needs a little bit of tweaking, or the way that we do things need tweaking too, because we've talked about everything. Like, we even talked about review styles, like are we going to do a point system or something like that? which both of us kind of sat down and we were trying to think of how you could fit a point system into this. And I think at this point we're kind of on the same page that we don't want to do a point system.
Right.
Yeah. So mostly these reviews are not going to be like your, like, oh, I give this game a 7.5 out of 10, and more of, like, oh, this is what we enjoyed about the game. This is what we didn't enjoy about the game. This is what you can expect. And, this is what we think.
Exactly. Take that as you will. And if this sounds like something you'll like, and if your views and gameplay styles align with us, you'll probably enjoy it too. Or maybe if we're not big into it, maybe avoid it. Take everything with a grain of salt, and your opinion matters more than ours. Now, big part of this is as we're going through and making these adjustments and figuring things out and really fine-tuning and nailing down this formula, this is where you guys come in an exceedingly helpful way, where your comments and your messages and stuff really are going to help us out, making this something that you want to enjoy. We're not over here making this content for us, for the most part. we definitely make a product that we enjoy. But if you have any kind of suggestions or like I said, comments, positive or negative, please let us know, and we'll evaluate everything all of you say, and potentially make adjustments going forward based on that feedback.
Yeah, and also would be game suggestions too. Like I said before, we have games. So I've got a stack of games behind me on my shelf. Tyler's got stacks of games here. He's got some in the house as well. So we're not at a shortage for games right now. So we do have games that we want to talk about, and some of them are new, some of them aren't new, some of them are old games. But there's always room for more games, because if there's one thing that Gen Con showed me, which was I have no idea how many board games release on a yearly basis. It is insane.
It must be millions.
Yeah, there were so many games there that I've never heard of, that weren't even close to being on my radar. That one of them was something that we picked up for a friend of ours when we were at the show. We ended up playing just recently. Super fun game. Was not on my radar, didn't even know it existed, had a lot of fun with it. So yeah, there are going to be games out there that you guys might want to know about, that you haven't played, or maybe you have played it and you just want to see what we think of it. Send them over, right? That way we can look into these games, buy them, check them out, see what we think of them. If it's something that you're curious about, like you've seen it before but you're not ready to pull the trigger, I'll probably pull the trigger.
Yeah.
I have a problem when it comes to buying board games.
Add it to the shelf.
Yeah, I'll put it on the shelf. So yeah, that's a good point there, would be, interaction with you guys. So if there's something, that you want to see, yeah, send us over, because I'd love to hear what you guys want to play and what you guys want to see.
Now, off the topic of the 60-second board game reviews, some people just want to, watch us play a game. We want to play the games. So this brings me to another thing that we're like, all of this we're nailing down the details for. We're going to at some point put together a live play sort of board game sessions, and we're going to record us just sitting down and playing games, and with our wonderful comedic personalities, hopefully you'll enjoy watching them as much as we enjoy making them. But yeah, we're gonna sit down and just record ourselves playing some board games from time to time, and be putting that up as well. That won't be these 60-second things. That'll be some of the longer form content. And we really, honestly, we just got to figure out some audio things for them. We got to figure out mic setups and things like that, so we can bring you guys wonderful quality products instead of just pointing an iPhone at a table and and rolling some dice and getting what you get. But once we get everything nailed down, expect that coming in the future as well.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem right now when it comes to the actual play stuff, is that while we do want to produce that content, we have a lot of ideas for actual play, be it TTRPGs or board games or card games, whatever it is. We love playing this stuff. We could legitimately set up today and record us doing something, but the problem is it's not going to be the quality that we want to push out to you guys. We want it to be something that you want to watch. We don't want to just slap it together and have it look poor and have the sound quality be difficult to understand and be able to tell what's going on. We want to actually put more into this project so that the product that we're giving you guys is something that we're proud of, and not just something that we're pushing out because we're working with what we have. So when it comes to the actual play stuff, that's probably going to be a little bit further down the road, because we still need to figure out the logistics on some of that stuff and how it's going to work, and making that stuff work. Whereas like the 60-second reviews, we're going to start probably getting some of that together right now, which means that, we're going to use what we have, see what we can come up with, and if it's good enough, start pushing it out to you guys. And I think we'll be able to, do something pretty acceptable for that stuff. Is it going to be exactly where we want it to be the first couple of episodes? Probably not. Right. I think there's going to be some tweaking, and we're going to, want to change things up a little bit. But I think we have a good idea for the bones as far as that stuff is considered. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
Yeah, just like the podcast where we aim to make it better each and every week with these new episodes, we're always finding better ways to, really speed up the process as far as like sit down, record. Less issues means less fixing, and
yeah, right.
Just really, get everything fine tuned. And the less time we got to spend on stuff like that, the more time we can spend on better thumbnails and getting, making sure everything is up every week at the specific time, which we've done pretty good on so far. I don't think we've missed a single upload, but it's just things like that. So if, we've got the podcast and we've got this pretty much down. Well, all right, let's throw in some 60-second in reviews. All right, well, now we're managing our TikTok and stuff, which we're failing on right now. We don't put up anything in the TikTok part. I think there's 2 videos on there total, and we've had that up as long as we've had the podcast. Well, now that's something we need to manage too. And okay, so it's a little more time and effort has to go into that. All right, cool. Let's nail that down. All right, we want to do these live play board games sessions. Okay. Let's get camera angles. Let's get mics set up. Let's do all this. Let's get multiple players, people you don't know outside of like me and Richard. And all right, now we got to get those uploaded and ready to go. And are we going to cut out snippets of those and upload them as shorts and stuff like that too? And then we're looking at doing more stuff, and everything is good. It's just, we got to
so much.
Right. And we're super excited to do it, willing to do it, and capable of doing it. We just have to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, and time management is big for both of us because we both have a lot of stuff going on. We both work full time in addition to doing the podcast, and we have other stuff that's going on. We have probably too many hobbies that any one person should actually have. There's so many things to do in a day, essentially, which, is partially why we are kind of failing on some of these socials. Like, we don't post to Instagram nearly as much as we should. We don't post to TikTok at all. I mean, we've done it like a couple of times. But I think part of that, too, has been kind of struggling with what kind of content to put on there. And I think that's where these 60-second reviews are going to help, because that is content that is formatted for YouTube Shorts. It's formatted for TikTok. So it's kind of like good for guidelines, right? As I think both of us are kind of the same way, which is if we don't really have like guides for ourselves, then we can kind of fall into that trap of what you're gonna do and what you're supposed to do, right? So, there's nobody there telling me what I should be posting to TikTok, and I guess I'm not hip enough for the TikTok crowd yet. I'm gonna try and be, though.
Yeah, we'll be the hippest we can be. We're gonna have bucket hats and cool patterned, possibly bowling shirts. Either way, the kids are gonna love it. Outside of that, I think the next thing we're looking at, and this should stem pretty easily after we like nail down a setup for board games. We're gonna start maybe putting out some Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, Cthulhu, Dread, maybe even, because that was exciting. These little one-shots, and we're gonna jump into different, gaming systems and stuff, and show off different TTRPGs. Honestly, probably mostly Dungeons & Dragons, because that's what it is. That's what the channel is. That's what it started as. That's what we're most confident in, and we have a lot of fun doing it. We think a lot of people enjoy watching. We're gonna be putting up recorded one-shots. It'll either be Richard or I DMing, and we'll have, a couple friends joining us as players, and we'll start putting those up too. Then, long-term goal, if we get all of this going, after, shorten it up a bit, Talas, it's a home game we've been working on for a while. We were wanting to start up a full-time campaign, like long play, full-length campaign. And we want to get that going. But then, honestly, and I haven't even mentioned this to Richard yet, I'm inspired by, teams like Dimension 20 even, that still do these like full-length, air quote, full-length campaigns of 15, 20 episodes, but short bites, like, oh yeah, it's their long, episodes, there's 20 of them, but that's not 130 episodes like a Critical Role. And you could jump in and have these full-length campaigns in a good time, and then take a break for a little bit, and then boom, you're in a whole new world. And if you want to go revisit the other world, go back to that world. So maybe, with these long play campaigns, maybe we could look at something like that too, potentially. It's up, I don't know. This is all transparent. We're looking, we're in the glass room. We're sweating. and you guys are all staring at us. We're just talking in circles.
And we're just talking about stuff. Yeah, and obviously these are a lot of things that we want to do, and it's going to take us some time to do it, but I think that these are all attainable goals for us, and I think that hopefully that it's content that people want to engage with. Obviously, we aren't trying to, like overload ourselves as far as content is considered, so we're going to have to kind of like step into these things, as we can to make sure that we can keep everything up. I think the thing that worries us both the most would be trying to drop everything all at once and then just having to settle, right?
That will never do.
Yeah, like having to settle on like, oh, it's just good enough to get us by.
No,
right?
we'd have already had Dungeons and Dragons, episodes of us playing at the table. Our Strahd game, our home game, would have already been recorded if we were willing to make sacrifices like that.
If we were willing to just settle on subpar quality stuff, we probably would have already started that. But we really do want something that is more enjoyable to watch, something that's going to stand the test of time, that's going to be, something that you want to watch.
Exactly. Like I said, it's super helpful to us if you let us know what you like, what you don't like. If any of that sounds super interesting and you're like, hey, I would really love that, can we get that sooner than later? Let us know that too, because that's, you're the carrot and we're the stick, or other way, you're the carrot and the stick, I guess.
Yeah.
We want your attention and love. Please let us know you want things and then poke us and we're more likely to do it. Please. Or if we didn't mention something so far and you're like, hey, it would be cool if you blank, please let us know that too. That's something we'll look into as well. Like we're throwing things at the wall right now. So far we've hit on topics and content possibilities that we are confident in being able to achieve in the near future, versus there's probably some more out there things that we just aren't necessarily confident or haven't thought of. Maybe Richard does a vlog and he just goes around and shows the life and the day of Richard. I don't know, man.
It's not that exciting.
It's probably
really
not.
No.
But maybe that's something you want to see, but that's something we're not necessarily confident in. So, there's always that middle ground there. Whew.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest good examples for that would be the 60-second review, because when we originally started talking about this, it wasn't a 60-second review.
Good point.
Yeah, when we started talking about this, it was a full-on more review system. So we hadn't really come up with a time gate for it, right? So it was just all like, hey, we should start doing some game reviews, right? And it kind of came up because we were sitting around playing some games and we're all like, oh, I really want to talk about this game, right? I want to talk to people about this game. I like it, but there's things I want to hit, and I think it could really benefit for other people to know these things. And in those cases, we tried to find some information on games, and we looked it up, and we couldn't really find the content that we wanted, right? So we were looking for things, and we couldn't find it. And then we're like, well, we could create that content. So if somebody was looking for that, they aren't finding it, but if we had a video, if we had the resources out there, then they would find us, and they would look for, they would find the answers in what we were looking for as well. Because I know we're not the only people out there that are interested in that stuff, right? So there are other people out there, and that's kind of where it started, and then it kind of just started to snowball from there. And we went from, well, what do we want to do? Do we want to do this long format where we will just take snippets out and post those little snippets around, or do we want to just try something completely different than what we're thinking about and just doing a small kind of encapsulated review? So nothing that's like super in depth, that you would see on, like these longer YouTube videos that are like 20-25 minutes, set up everything, play, review, scoring systems and all that stuff. More of a very, like, you're sitting around talking to somebody at the water cooler, right? Yeah, you're like, what did you do this weekend? And you're like, oh, I played this game. And they're like, oh, tell me about it. And you kind of go into a little explanation, as in like, oh, this is the game, this is what I didn't like, and we had a lot of fun and we played it. And that's kind of where I was approaching it. I don't know where you were at with it.
No, that works perfect. True Strike has always been about two friends just talking it out.
Yeah,
we're always having these genuine discussions about things we love, and being able to do that in a 60-second format, it gives that same vibe even without a second person being here. Now, if it was going to be these longer reviews, we could have a couple of us on and give like a genuine discussion and stuff like that. Things like that will probably still happen on the podcast, kind of like this happened. You guys have listened to these episodes. We're up to like episode 27 or something right now, with including session 0, or that's 28 episodes right now. And across all of that, we've covered board games and stuff like that. So that's still going to happen probably. Queen by Midnight, one of the games that's going to be a 60-second review, is going to have an episode probably. We're talking about that in some more, Darrington Press stuff. And that's not going to go away. And that's where you're going to have Richard and I sitting down and talking about something for like an hour or so. But these 60-second reviews are just where we can, compile our thoughts into 1 minute.
Yeah.
And just kind of get it to you as quickly as we can get it to you, instead of you having to wait on, these podcasts to like run through the chain, and you got to sit down in your car and, listen for an hour just to hear our thoughts. I don't know. I'm excited for it.
I think the 60-second thing should be a really good gateway too, because like, for example, Queen by Midnight, right? So we're going to pen up something for Queen by Midnight. We're going to talk about it in 60 seconds. And then if somebody were to watch that video and come back and ask us more questions, or like say, hey, that seems really cool, what about a more in-depth look at it? And then we could look at that and go, okay, well, we'll do a whole podcast episode about it, because there's a lot that we can talk about if you want to see it, right? So that's a good way of doing it too. Like if somebody sees one of these short formats and that's something that you want to see more of, and people ask for it, then we'll do it.
Yeah, and I already mentioned, please let us know if you have questions, concerns, comments, whatever on content going forward. But Queen by Midnight example. Oh, hey, what about this? Or could you answer this? Or could you let me know this? Of course, we're going to reply to every comment we can and stuff like that. But it doesn't mean we're not going to, hey, let's write that question down. Let's make sure we hit that. It's a good talking point. We'll hit that in the podcast as well. So we're watching everything. So questions and stuff like that, yeah, that helps the podcast as well, even if it's a 60-second review. And hopefully all of these little things will start to kind of help each other out. If a short brings people to the channel, and that brings people to the podcast, and the podcast, oh, I do like this Dread they're talking about. And then we do a board game gameplay for an hour of us playing Dread. Maybe they go watch that. And then everything kind of like spirals and helps each other. And woo! We get this cool, unified channel we're internally recognizing currently as the True Strike Network. We've got the True Strike podcast. We've got these True Strike 60-second reviews. We've got to figure that out. But yeah, the overarching thing. So if you hear us say True Strike Network or TSN, that's what we're talking about. Is it actually necessarily called that? Are we going to market it as that? I don't actually know.
Yeah, who knows at this point?
But that's internally what we're referring it to. So, hey, if you hear us drop that, that's what that is.
Yeah, and it's, for me personally, super exciting because, it was already a lot of fun having the podcast, and we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons, which we love. And then we also, as an offshoot, like you said, get to talk about other things. So not just Dungeons and Dragons, but everything TTRPGs. And then we go to something like Gen Con, which is encapsulating the entire hobby of tabletop, including board games, which I love board games, absolutely love them. And any opportunity I have to talk about new or even old board games that I play a lot sounds amazing to me. So this is very exciting, for us. I think, just being able to talk about this part of our hobby that we enjoy so much of, because there's a lot of really cool games out there that, I want to talk about, and some of them maybe not so great. I mean, I assume we're going to have games that we talk about that we are not super fond of, or that we don't like. And like you said, there's games that we haven't even opened yet. So I have games that I have bought that have just been taken out of the package and set up. You have games that I'm looking at right now that are still in shrink wrap. So we don't even know if we like some of these games. We don't even know if they're good games, because not every game is a banger. So we have some that aren't so fun. And then we have some that need a little bit of work. And then we have some that are just downright amazing. 10 out of 10 if we were going to score them.
I can confirm I've made the board game player sin of owning Wingspan, but never opening Wingspan.
I know. Every time we sit down to play, we're like, what are we going to play? We got to play something new. We're like, we could play Wingspan.
Yep.
And we haven't yet.
Yep.
Yeah.
What if instead Fast and the Furious?
Yeah, Fast and the Furious board game. Yep, a good $7 board game.
Oh God, the best $7 board game I've ever
fun. Yeah.
purchased.
And then we have games where it's like paralysis even. So we'll sit down and we'll open up a game and start looking at the components and looking at the rules, and we're like, we don't have the time right now to play this game. This game needs more time for setup, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
But it makes us push off a game that, goes to a later date that we haven't even tried yet.
Spoiler, Queen was almost like that, except we came together specifically to play it.
Yeah, Queen was almost a moment where we were, not really going to be able to play it because, we had some issues with some of the rules and stuff like that. But we did come together and we were able to play it. And I think for the most part, everybody enjoyed it, which we'll talk about in our review.
Yep. Make sure you keep an eye out for that coming soon.
Yeah.
Woof. Well, what else do we got, man? Is there anything else we need to, spill to the listeners outside of, hey, everybody, thank you for listening. We appreciate you. The fact that we've even got this far just because, every week some of you are tuning in and keeping us going.
Yeah.
It really does help the old brain pan when me and Richard realize we're not just shouting words out into the, internet ethosphere. There are people tuning in, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you to anybody who takes the time out of their week to listen to our mad ramblings. And like I said, I hope we don't overwhelm with what we're planning on doing, but we're just trying to be transparent.
Absolutely.
We're just trying to talk to you guys about what we see for the future of this and how we kind of want to move forward. And we don't want to stop with, obviously, the Dungeons & Dragons content, like you said. We still want to keep producing that. But there is so much more to Tabletop that we would love to hit on, and this is our way of kind of getting into that.
Exactly. So, hit us up everywhere, all the normal places. If you are on Spotify, we have surveys on there and polls. I'm definitely going to be throwing a survey on this week, really just asking for questions. So if you want to go ahead and respond on there, we will see it. It'll go straight to us. If you're catching this on YouTube, the comments. If you're on X or Instagram or Threads, you can comment on there or message us. Either way, we'll see it and we'll get back to you. And in some instances, maybe we'll try to start up a discussion, especially if you have really good advice and we have questions and we actually have feedback, and we'll start a little discourse with it. Either way, we'd love to interact with you guys even more. And that's I think that's the biggest part of this whole thing, is not only are we inspired to create more, but we want to interact more, and that's the biggest part of getting video out there instead of just audio every week.
Yeah, I think so.
So, all right, well, I guess we're gonna end this podcast up and get to recording some stuff, start figuring this out.
Try and record some new content that we could push out to you guys.
So keep an eye out on YouTube and all the video feeds. And for now, I've been Tyler.
And I've been Richard.
And we've been True Strike. Hey, adventurers. Thanks again for joining us today. Please be sure to give us a follow on your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. If there's any questions you'd like to write into the show, you can hit us up on Threads or Instagram. New episodes released every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for listening to True Strike.